At 2:18 in the morning, a buck stood beside a county road and watched a truck pass. It didn't flinch. It didn't blink. The driver slowed down, waiting for the animal to bolt into the ditch. But the deer stayed there, ribs showing under its winter coat. That is the part people remember. Not the disease name. Not the maps. The stillness. The way wildness seems to drain out. Chronic wasting disease is a prion disease affecting deer, elk, moose, and related animals. The Kitsi says human infections have never been reported. A prion isn't a germ in the usual sense. It doesn't cough. It doesn't crawl. It folds wrong, then teaches other proteins to follow. The CTC says prions can spread through feces, saliva, blood, or urine and contaminate soil, food, or water where animals gather. That's where the dread changes shape. It isn't only in the animal anymore. It's in the scrape marks, the mud, the water trough. The disease was first identified in captive deer in the United States in the late 20th century, long before most hunters had heard its name. By the early 1980s, wedgehead had been found in wild deer. Since then, the map has widened, county by county. For many families, deer season is ordinary. Thermos coffee before dawn. Orange vests by the door. A freezer filling slowly through November. As of April 2026, CITES reported random as chrono. A spread like that doesn't need drama. It moves in harvest reports, testing stations, and quiet calls from wildlife offices after supper. In affected animals, who is fatal. There is no vaccine, and there is no treatment that reverses the disease. The signs can look almost too plain. Weight falling away. A head held low. Drool darkening the hair under the jaw. CITES lists symptoms including drastic weight loss, stumbling, listlessness, excessive thirst or urination, drooling, and a loss of fear around people. A healthy deer hears a twig snap and becomes motion. This one hears a truck door close and only turns its head. Hued can incubate for a long time before signs appear, which means infected animals may look normal while the disease moves quietly. That is the hard part. The sick animal is obvious only at the end. Before that, the woods keep their face straight. Once food is established in an area, CITES warns prions may remain in soil for years, still capable of infecting animals. Years is a long time for something you can't smell or sweep away. Snow melts. Leaves rot. The place remembers. Public health agencies tell hunters in these areas to consider testing deer or elk before eating the meat. If you hunt where food's been detected, consider waiting for test results before cooking, grinding, gifting, or freezing that venison. One cautious approach is simple. Check your state wildlife agency before the season, then follow local testing and carcass transport rules. CTC guidance says if an animal tests positive for WT, people should not eat meat from that animal. That advice may feel wasteful after a long season, but caution matters most when the risk is uncertain and the freezer is full. A 2025 emerging infectious diseases study found venison processing surfaces and equipment could become contaminated with prions. That brought the question indoors, not out in the timber, not under moonlight, right there beside the sink and the cutting board. The same study found cross contamination could occur, meaning a knife doesn't look different after it touches something dangerous, lies there ordinary with water drying along the handle. Researchers also evaluated decontamination methods. Because prions are unusually persistent and harder to inactivate than many familiar pathogens. When field dressing, consider gloves, dedicated knives, and avoiding brain or spinal tissues. Those steps may help reduce possible exposure. If a deer looks sick, acts tame, or stands alone in daylight, consider reporting it to local wildlife officials instead of handling it. NIV researchers using human brain organoids reported substantial resistance to VT infection, suggesting transmission to humans is unlikely under tested conditions. That is not nothing, it matters. But science rarely closes a door with a slam. It leaves a latch and keeps listening. The NICE study still noted limits, including possible genetic susceptibility, emerging strains, and questions that lab models cannot fully settle. So the cautious middle holds. Research suggests human infection is unlikely, but testing and avoiding positive animals may help lower uncertain risk. Venison moves through trust. A brother drops off steaks. A neighbor brings sausage. Someone says the deer looked fine. Cute affects cervids, the deer family, including white-tailed deer, mule deer, elk, moose, and reindeer. It is not only the whitetail at the fence line. It is the elk crossing a valley, the moose standing knee-deep in black water. A disease can feel local until it doesn't, until the same warning starts appearing in places that don't share a horizon. CT says infected carcasses in contaminated environments can contribute to spread, especially where prions reach soil, feed, or water. Consider leaving carcass disposal to local rules. Moving remains across county or state lines may create problems people cannot see. There are no confirmed human cases. That sentence should be said plainly. It should also be said with the lights still on. Titi says scientists continue studying whether contact with infected animals or eating infected meat could affect people. Because an animal may not look dangerous, consider testing in affected areas instead of trusting clear eyes, clean fur, and a normal run. The freezer is where uncertainty gets domestic. White paper packages. A marker line. Meals waiting for some cold week in February. Some experts have criticized sensational nicknames for the disease, arguing they trivialize a serious wildlife and public health problem. The quieter words are enough. Wasting. Drooling. Stumbling. No fear. A body forgetting how to be wild. Prions are misfolded proteins, not bacteria or viruses, which helps explain why ordinary disease language often feels inadequate here. You cannot boil a rumor out of a town. You cannot wash dread from a room just because the counters shine. For home processing, one approach is to keep tools separate, clean carefully, and avoid mixing animals before results come back. If you use a processor, consider asking how they separate batches from different animals, especially during seasons with high testing demand. The venison processing study made clear that shared equipment can matter because contamination is not always confined to the original carcass. The grinder hums. The bags fill. The danger, if it is there, never announces which pound it touched. A cautious household may choose to freeze meat separately until results returned, then decide what to keep, share, or discard. Cooking is not considered a reliable way to eliminate prion risk, so prevention focuses on testing and avoiding infected animals. Heat makes most food feel safer. Steam rises. Plates warm. But some fears sit beyond the comfort of a simmering pot. If you are unsure about a package of venison, consider checking the harvest record or test result before serving it to others. Reports continue to expand in parts of North America, and scientists warn that environmental persistence makes control especially difficult. The spread is not a wave you can watch from a porch. It is a stain that appears after rain, then refuses to dry. In cervids, wood is progressive and fatal, damaging the nervous system until the animal wastes away. If you see a deer staggering or drooling near homes, consider keeping distance and calling wildlife authorities for local guidance. The image stays with people because it breaks an old rule. Deer run, they vanish. They become a sound in brush. There is no known cure for wood in animals, which is why surveillance, testing, and prevention carry so much weight. No cure leaves a silence around the subject, the kind that gathers in check stations when everyone waits for a call. If this story helps you think more carefully about the meat in your freezer, stay with us. A quiet follow means a lot. Tonight's question is not whether the woods are doomed. It is smaller than that. It sits wrapped in paper behind a freezer door. It is in the deer that should have run, in the soil under its hooves, in the knife drying beside the sink, and somewhere beyond the last mailbox, under a cold green yard light, another animal stands still long after the truck has passed. The engine fades. The road goes quiet. The deer does not lower its head. It only watches the dark between the trees.